people back home somehow had some type of information that said that that guy, as a bunch of other people, were involved in what?
In the murder of Tupac.
Oh my God!
Question to you.
He asked him that!
Question to you.
Stop.
Today we are back in court in Vegas for day 2 of Nevada versus Keffe D, Duane Davis. Yesterday we got off with, opening statements. I really appreciate how clear both opening statements were. I think the prosecution did a good job of streamlining their presentation so that the jury didn't get bogged down in the weeds. I'm already in the weeds because Keffe D's book is just in my brain, so I'm already in the weeds, but the prosecution did a good job of not getting too deep into the weeds and giving a good overview of what that puzzle is going to look like at the end of trial, who the players are, and answered some of the questions about the fact that everyone else in Keffe D's car, the car that shot into Tupac's car and ultimately killed Tupac, was deceased. And I think they made it very clear that, hey, this is who was in the vehicle. They're all deceased. Keffe D's not. This is how we are handling this case. He was the aider and abetter, not using those words so specifically, but he's the one who ordered the hit. He's the one who handed off the gun. He's the one that encouraged. And when we get into jury instructions, you'll see that language about the participation needed. And then the defense came in with also a good opening statement and a good theme to the case. What is fact and what is fiction? And went through the things that are known as fact and then said everything else is fiction. And then at the end said, and you know what? My client's really well known to be a bullshitter. My client's known for his bullshit. And I think for the defense to try to get out ahead of Keffe D's own words, which are going to be the strongest part of this case against him, corroborated by other evidence, we hope. Well, it's an interesting strategy to be like, most of what my guy said is fiction. I like these attorneys so far. Things have run interestingly until we got bogged down in an interview at the end of the day, but I don't think that's either of the attorney's fault. It was recorded right after the killing of Biggie. We heard a lot of name dropping during, well, not name dropping in the sense of people are doing it just because they're names. We heard a lot of familiar names yesterday. We heard about the investigation into Tupac's murder, into Biggie's murder. We heard that apparently there was a Hummer containing MC Hammer. There was a Hammer Hummer. We also heard that Tupac spoke to law enforcement when he was taken to the hospital and was asked if he could identify those that shot into the vehicle. And he was like, nah, we'll take care of it. We saw some of the initial investigators, a lot of issues with the investigation, issues in that the lead investigator, or the first lead investigator that testified yesterday, I thought was really credible, great memory, and was like, well, we had some concerns about Compton PD, which was disbanded in 2000. And there were people getting into his case files on his desk, so he had to start locking them up. Reports went missing. He had to start saving things onto floppy disk. They explained what a floppy disk was, just in case anyone didn't know, and the precautions that he was taking, but that everything was getting leaked to the media, that there was a photo of Tupac on the autopsy table that didn't come from law enforcement records that ended up out in the media. He doesn't know how that ended up in the media, but the, outside forces interceding, and then the lack of trust. And then in opening statements, we heard that apparently LAPD also didn't really trust Las Vegas PD. So we've got Las Vegas Metro and LAPD and Compton PD. So some really interesting undercurrents going on between law enforcement. And then we've got the East Coast, West Coast, bad boy records, death row records, all of it popping off, and Compton becoming incredibly violent during this period of time with a lot of retaliatory shootings back and forth. But, after the shooting of Biggie, Keffe D left in not his car. That car still belongs to GM. And they went to Jerry's Deli in Marina Del Rey and got some foodie food. So, we're in for an interesting day. I think we're going to hear the B-side of that interview. Emily, you said B-side. Yeah, it's on a cassette tape.
So now I want to get to his injuries. And I'm going to start with, I'll start with 49. What are we looking at here?
This is the right side of the body up by the chest area. You can see the right axilla or armpit in that region. And then you could see some of the sutures of what they call a thoracotomy incision, where they've cut into the side of the chest. And then just below that, this is an entrance gunshot wound.
From your review, were you able to determine sort of the path of this particular bullet?
Yes.
And what was that?
It entered here in the right lateral aspect of the chest, just below the axilla, the armpit, and then went across the right chest space, went across the right lung, and then ended up coming to rest in what we call the sternal notch. The sternal notch is a location is just between where your collarbones kind of meet up towards the center of your chest. So just beneath that, the projectile was recovered.
The nature of that type of wound, what did it physically do to him, his ability to breathe and those types of things?
So the injury to the lung would have collapsed the lung and also caused the lung to bleed. And so it was documented within the medical records that he had about 2 liters of blood in his chest cavity when they put in the chest tube to try to save him. And similarly, they ended up removing that lung to try to save him and kind of clamp off the bleeding. And then it already had multiple episodes of not becoming responsive, so he wasn't able to breathe. He was bleeding out in that area from that injury.
I'm going to move on to his next wound, State's Exhibit number 51. What are we looking at here?
This is the right lateral aspect of his body, so his right flank and his lateral aspect of his right thigh.
And
then his backside of his right hand is also within this picture.
The ruler, though, is identifying what?
The ruler is around the right lateral aspect of his thigh, so the right thigh on the lateral side.
Was there another entry wound?
That?
And that's an entrance gunshot wound.
Yeah.
And can you tell me the path that bullet took?
Yes.
And go ahead.
That bullet entered in the lateral aspect of the right thigh and then went upwards into the abdomen and damaged his intestines. They ended up operating there and removed a portion of his intestines, and then during that surgery they recovered another projectile.
Was there anything missing in your review of those records in terms of record keeping or anything like that?
No, but we only took a few photos at the time of autopsy. At that time, they used Polaroids, or they used film and cameras.
Oh.
And so we had few photos of the body itself. And so consequently, the crime scene analyst photos were helpful for being able to come to determination in addition to the reports.
Interesting. A, they didn't take very many photos at the time, understand. And B, we took Polaroids at the time. This morning, we saw a couple witnesses that went pretty quickly, starting with the last witness and then working backwards. Security, or part of the security and surveillance team for MGM Properties, all of them, was testifying about the video from the MGM that shows part of Orlando Baby Lane Anderson getting jumped at the MGM. We heard much description about, at the very end there, where Orlando Anderson's path of travel was before he ended up near that elevator bay. And then we saw the path of exit of Tupac Shakur Knight and their entourage. And then it seemed fans and bystanders figuring out, oh shit, that's Tupac, and then following them as well and their path of exit through the casino. There were parts of that video where you could very clearly see some of the members of the party. Other parts of the video, not as clear. Of course, those were all on VHS. They authenticated the time and date stamps on the video before it got into the weeds. We also heard from the coroner that had reviewed the coroner's report. The coroner who performed the autopsy in this case is since deceased and is an unavailable witness. So the coroner did a review of the report, the photographs, and the evidence here, and then came up with their own conclusions that the cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen. The manner of death was homicide or at the hands of another. It was interesting that she also noted that the coroner's office at the time wasn't taking as many photos and was often using Polaroids. It was just an interesting note after we heard that there was a Polaroid that was not from the Las Vegas PD crime scene team that had ended up in the hands of the media, though there are other possibilities, of course, as well. So we went through the coroner. We went through one quick bit of evidence of a bullet fragment that had been recovered. And we've seen a lot of engagement from the jury today. Remember, this is a judge and jurisdiction that allows jurors to ask questions. And for the first time this morning, we saw the judge say, and we can't answer the end of that question and give a little explanation, which I really appreciate. And the court has asked the juror questions of the witnesses. It's nice to see, but the jury is engaged and does have their own questions of those little things that are kind of noodling at them when they're hearing the testimony fresh and get to have the court ask those questions of the witness.
At some point, were you a Metro police officer?
Yes, I was for 20 plus years.
And approximately what year did you start?
September of 1991.
And then when did you retire as a Metro officer?
July 12th of 2012.
And after July 12th of 2012, did you do something else with Metro?
I did for about almost 8.5 years. I was a cold case homicide investigator.
Did you have any success with what you did on the cold case unit?
Oh, certainly, yeah. We had closed quite a few.
So when you say closed, meaning that you were able to find out basically the information you needed, the suspect or whatever the case was?
Yes, absolutely. All the way through to an arrest and prosecution and conviction, yes.
And with regard to the success you had on the cold case, did any of those cases not involve some type of technological thing like either a trace, DNA, or fingerprints?
I think I'd say there was
Interesting question.
none come to my mind that we didn't have something that was redone and reviewed and then came to a conclusion or pointed to
That's a good
a
question
specific
for the
person
defense.
that we were
Yeah.
then able to go and interview.
It's a good question.
We had a couple. We had one where we flew to Toledo and we got a confession on a murder that happened here in Las Vegas because that person was already doing life without there for another murder that he had committed. I don't recall that we had any physical evidence in there that we needed. You look at some of these case files, and they're definitely pointing towards a specific person, right? Every indication is that this is who you're dealing with,
Right.
and that it just didn't. You couldn't get it across the finish line, right? And like Jamie Sheldon, I brought up earlier. I know who did that murder, but it's
right.
whether or not there's enough to get across the finish line with that piece
Right.
of evidence that's going to be where the district attorneys are willing to take that case to trial, and you're waiting for that one more thing, right? So it just stays there waiting for that one more piece of evidence to come in. And that happened with some of the cold cases where it's like, hey, we knew who this person was. I remember one specifically where we had a guy where we knew in the gang unit who we were looking for. And then I got to homicide and then looked up case files and saw that that person had never been charged. I'm like, how did he never get charged? We knew who it was. And we were able to then put enough together to arrest him and get a conviction.
And
Was
the
that
arrest
this case?
Because of either DNA or fingerprints or something along those lines?
On that one, no, we had video surveillance that existed at the time on a VHS tape from a 7.
I'm waiting for him to be like, no, he wrote a book.
All right. And then in terms of your work, the night of what happened here, that would be the area where you found and located the bullets, the cartridge cases?
Cartridge cases, yeah, they're in the eastbound lane, I think the number 3 travel lane.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Anything further?
Okay, here. Let me tell you what I appreciate about defense counsel. I don't think defense counsel, this is speculation on my part, I don't think defense counsel had any intention of bringing this map out and going down this line of questioning. But here's what's giving lots of trial experience for me, is that the line of questioning about the delay in writing reports did not go well for defense. It did not go the direction he wanted it to go. He remained pleasant and then tried to extract himself from that line of questioning. And instead of just being like, that didn't go well, and sitting down, which we see attorneys on both sides do. Well, those questions didn't go so well. And then you sit down on the bad question. This defense attorney, instead of sitting down on the bad question, shifted to another line of questioning, cleaned up a few other things that he may or may not have wanted to ask about. I don't think he necessarily did. Pivoted, went to another line of questioning as if there was nothing out of the ordinary at all, as if that line of questioning, all the answers were exactly what he thought they were going to be. Cool, calm, and collected, moved on to another line of questioning, and then is done with this witness. Really good lawyering. I think he went probably a few questions too far with the cold case detective. It happens to everyone, but he extricated himself really, really well.
How do you know Shug?
He lived in my neighborhood.
And is that in Compton?
Yes.
When you were at Club 662, you said you were head of security.
If he's from Shug's neighborhood, you know who else grew up in that neighborhood? The defendant.
Yes.
Was somebody by the name of Reggie Wright Jr. there with you?
Not at that time.
No?
No.
When was he with you?
I got out of prison in 1988. She came and got me in 1988, like 4 days from coming home. Started another company, Fernhill Records, then Death Row Records came. Soon as Death Row was launched, Reggie came a few months after that.
Okay, so we're talking about the start of Death Row Records. Reggie wasn't part of Death Row Records initially, but you were.
Yes.
And then Suge Knight, was he the boss of Death Row Records?
Yes. I wouldn't say Suge was, he was guilty by association.
Okay.
He wasn't from the neighborhood. He lived in the neighborhood.
That's an important
We
distinction.
looked at him as somebody from the neighborhood. When he started Death Row and started to recruit us, then yes, he's from the hood. I look at it, you have three different type of friends in the neighborhood. You got gang members, you got gang bangers, and you got men that just guilty by association.
That live there.
Living in that area.
Okay. And can you tell me what the difference between a gang member and a gang banger is?
A gang member hangs out. A gang banger handles his business, put in work, do what the gang do.
And what was your role with Death Row?
I was the guy that if something happened, she would have you take care of that.
Are you familiar with somebody by the name of Tupac Shakur?
Yes.
How are you familiar with Tupac?
He was assigned to Death Row.
And when he was signed with Death Row, would he also hang out with you guys?
He hung with my brother now. Yeah. Not me.
Who is your brother?
Alton McDonald, Montreal.
Did he went by Buntry?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, during this time, is it fair to say that Mr. Shakur had an issue with rappers from the East Coast?
I think Tupac inherited the beef between Suge Knight and Puffy.
Okay,
I think that's fair.
That's all it was.
I think that's
And
fair.
We all fell. Some of us fell victim to it because we allowed ourselves to be a part of the BS, should I say? And that was a situation between record companies, not gangs. So technically, it wasn't our business. But when you had 20 men just fresh out of prison and didn't have a way of getting the things they wanted, getting a paycheck from Suge, we did almost anything and everything to get that paycheck.
Because everybody's on payroll.
In terms of your knowledge of what happened on that night, fair to say you weren't present when the shots had rung out.
No, I wasn't there.
Okay. And your testimony is that you had heard from other people initially that, hey, Tupac had been shot.
Yes.
And you had thought maybe other people were maybe relieved, thinking like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. He's going to be okay.
That's what came back to 662. People that went to the scene and everybody said Tupac was talking. So everybody came back to the club saying he gonna be all right. So people just went back to, me.
You go back to Compton. You live in Compton.
Yes.
You still live in Compton?
No.
At the time you live in Compton, you go back to Compton, and you tell us that there was a lot of tension. Can you describe that for us when you went back in terms of what kind of tension we're talking about?
You sure you want me to answer that?
I don't know, is it going to be graphic?
No, I ain't gonna. I got to raise the word in it, but you asking me a question. I don't. And what I explained to them, I don't want to send him to prison.
Sure.
Even though we don't like each other.
Sure.
I don't want to send you to prison. So that's why I'm here where I'm at and the way I am, because I changed my life. I'm raising my grandkids, teaching them never to be like their papa. And here I am explaining to people what I used to be. And I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that at all. And you asking me questions that can hurt him.
Wow.
When you went back to Compton, was it like a Southside Crip shoots a Pyru Blood, and then a Pyru Blood shoots a Southside Crip? Is that the tension that we're talking about?
Do I answer this?
That's a straightforward question. It's a yes or no answer.
Okay.
Did you see that?
When I was a part of that life.
Wow.
I was a part of that.
Once again.
And I was, no, because you asking something that's going to hurt this dude. And okay, let me stop.
And once again, I want to emphasize.
When we got back to Compton,
Okay.
it was a gang war.
Yep.
People were getting hurt.
Okay.
People was being sought. People were looking for certain individuals from his neighborhood,
Okay.
as well they did mine.
Okay.
But Orlando, him, and certain other people were being sorted because people wanted to kill them.
People back home somehow had some type of information that said that guy, as a bunch of other people, were involved in what?
In the murder of Tupac.
Oh my God.
Question to you.
He asked him that.
Question to
I'm
you.
telling you, stop.
Can you focus on me for a second?
Yeah, I will.
And I apologize.
Holy shit. He asked him that.
The people that were here in Las Vegas, listen to my question, sir. The people that were here in Las Vegas, you're telling me, were eyewitnesses to what happened
How is this happening right now?
and went back home. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you, the people that was at
Just
662.
answer my question, sir. Yes or no?
I can't
Is it
answer
a yes
that
or no?
without a what you call them. You trying to tell me to say something that you're not going to understand. If you let me explain to you.
No, answer my question.
I'm not answering nothing.
Oh shit.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. McDonald, focus for a second.
I am focused. Very.
Focus on this. My question
He's focused. He doesn't trust your questions, counsel.
to you is this. You didn't know what happened that night because you weren't there.
I was at 662.
Right. Do you know who that was there?
I know everybody that was there.
Okay. Like who?
He's not naming names.
Talk to your lawyer, man. This dude is tripping. I'm not going to explain that. I can't answer that. You ask me something, I'm going to be honest about. You ask me something I don't want to talk about, you're going to have a problem. Treat me as a hostile witness. You're not going to talk to me and tell me as a grown man what I have to do up here. I'm not going to send him to prison. You are.
Oh shit.
Sir, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the city of Compton, California. I was born and raised there until about the age of 19.
And who was your father?
Reggie Wright
Who's your
Jr.
My father is Reginald Wright Sr.
And where did your father work?
He worked for the city of Compton Police Department.
PD.
And at some point, had he risen up the ranks of the Compton Police
I can't believe
Department
we're on
to
this
become a
witness.
lieutenant, is it, of gangs?
Eventually captain, but
Yeah.
during most of his career was a lieutenant.
Where did you ultimately become a police officer yourself?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
I was a civilian jailer from 1985 until 1989. And then I became a police officer from 1989 until I retired in 1996. My last year or two of being a police officer, I was employed as death row security, head of security, and also had a private security company.
I want to ask you about Bad Boy Records. Are you familiar with a company called Bad Boy Records?
Yes, sir, I am.
And who, to your knowledge, was running Bad Boy Records in the mid-90s?
P. Diddy, Sean Combs, Puffy. I don't know what name he's going by today.
So Mr. Combs was running Bad Boy Record, and then who would you say his most prominent artist at that time was?
Christopher Wallace, Biggie Small.
Okay. And then was there tension between Death Row Records and Bad Boy, the Bad Boy Entertainment label?
At what time period?
Well, you tell me. At any point did tension develop between Bad Boy Records and Death Row Records?
Initially, when I was around in '94, there wasn't. However, some things happened in '95 that started tension between Death Row and Bad Boys.
There's a famous speech that Mr. Knight gives at the Source Awards in New York in 1995.
Yes.
Does that contribute to it?
Yes.
Yes, sir. That was August the 6th, 1995. But yes, sir. That was when he let the world know.
And then there's another incident where one of Suge's associates was killed in Atlanta. Is that right?
That was in September 25th, I believe.
He has a very good memory.
Is it fair to say that your perception of security for Death Row Records was that somebody associated with Bad Boy Entertainment may have had something to do with the murder of one of Suge's friends in Atlanta?
That was always the story that was told to us. Yes, sir.
And so, is it fair to say by 1995, the end of 1995, that there was significant tension between Bad Boy and Death Row?
Yes, sir.
And to the extent that it even involved violence with regards to Suge Knight's friend being killed.
Correct. That was the first time something escalated to that point. Yes, sir.
Were you responsible for Tupac Shakur's security?
Yes, sir.
How did you handle Tupac Shakur's security?
Well, I had two guys that were primarily always assigned to him. One guy was a guy by the name of Kevin Hackey.
How did he have no security with him in that car then?
A lot at the beginning. Later on, towards the end, a gentleman by the name of Frank Alexander was the one that worked with him as well. And then I will always have additional guys, like Al Giddings, as one of them fill in for him when those guys wasn't available. But generally always had one security guard with him. After this particular song came out, in about May or June, we upped it to 2 security officers.
Now, you mentioned a particular song came out that changed how you handled Tupac Shakur's security. What song are you talking about?
It was a song called Hit 'Em Up.
And is it fair to say that in that song, Tupac is aggressively expressing his dislike for the members of Bad Boy Entertainment as well as other artists?
That's fair to say.
And as a result of that, you decided to change security for Tupac or increase it?
Well, I was a part of the discussion and ultimately had to approve it, but I'm sure Mr. Knight, possibly Mr. Shakur, and maybe the security officer that was primarily with them, we all agreed that he probably needed another guy with him.
All right, let's fast forward to September 7th, 1996, or that weekend.
Oh boy.
When do you come to Las Vegas for that weekend?
I came out that Friday.
Was Club 662 at that time in Mr. Knight's name?
No, it was perceived that it was. People believed it, even because of the name change. Excuse me. But it hasn't officially been, the paperwork hasn't officially, or never was completed. It was never done.
Now, you talk about the name change. Explain to us a little bit about the name change.
Well, we had a sign and all of that called Club 662.
Explain to us what 662 means.
662 on the keyboard of your phone, it will spell out the word MOB, which means members of the Bloods.
Nobody has keyboards on their phones anymore.
I forgot about that.
And so the club itself, the name
I mean,
of the club
it's
itself
fair.
rang out that it was a blood-affiliated club.
That's correct.
Now, what advice did Mr. Kalisis give you regarding being on your P's and Q's for that night in order for Suge Knight to be able to obtain approval for running that club?
So he advised, and the main thing that came out of that meeting was he advised all of my security guards, even though that they were authorized to carry guns, being off-duty police officers and stuff, that we shouldn't have guns on our possession inside of the club on that night.
So security didn't have guns. He's saying there's a reason, but he's also saying that law enforcement didn't have guns.
Who was in charge of the security for Club 662 that night?
Well, ultimately I am, but I had a on-site supervisor by the name of Al Giddens. He was actually who I consider in charge of the club, but ultimately as the owner I was.
And then we heard from James McDonald. He's suggested that he had a role in security as well, maybe different than your role in security. Were you aware of James McDonald being there at the club?
Yeah, James was a headache for my security. They hated him. But he and I, we've been knowing each other over 52 years, you know. So, I mean, that was like my brother. So James used to do it as a hustle. What James would do is go outside, get guys that looked like they had a bunch of money, and bring them to the front of the line. And that drove my security crazy, but James was just out there working the door.
James was doing his job.
Homeboys to come and be on the lookout, you know, still, you know, blood related, pyro related, to be around. But James was mainly doing a little side hustle.
Were you the person responsible for whatever event control or traffic control that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department did?
No, sir.
Were you the point of contact?
I was the point of contact for the club, yes.
Yeah, but you were the point of contact for the club. And then the person, is it fair to say that the person dealing with whatever traffic control or event control or population control, whatever it was that the attorney, George Glases?
He was the one that got them there.
Okay.
Made the call to get them there.
Okay. So you weren't the one that called Metro?
No, sir.
You said Mr. Alexander was the person that's supposed to be working security, or the person assigned for security for Mr. Shakur, but that he was with you. So on Saturday, was anybody with Mr. Shakur?
No, sir.
And you had mentioned earlier that after the song "Hit 'Em Up" had come out, and that was probably, 3-4 months before this, you had assigned 2 security officers to Mr. Shakur.
That's correct.
So where's the other one?
Well, that was Mr. Hackey, Kevin Hackey. He was scheduled to also be attending and writing, and that's who I actually thought was going to be with him, coming up with him, because he normally was with him. You know, him and Mr. Alexander, they kind of worked out who would be with Mr. Shakur. And for some reason, he didn't show up. He now telling me he had a late arrest, and he was stuck at the hospital all day dealing with an arrest.
You said you were there, and then you something changed. Well, we all know that on September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur was shot, and Mr. Knight was at least grazed in the head by a bullet. Did you find out about that?
Yes, sir.
How did you find out about that?
2 gentlemen, Buntry, true name was Alton McDonald, and a gentleman by the name of Neckbone. Well, his true name is Roger Williams.
Good. I didn't think we knew who Neckbone was. Now we know who Neckbone is. Roger Williams is Neckbone's government.
Chris Neckbone. They came inside the club and came straight to me. It was like, Reggie, Suge and Pac just got shot down the street. I thought
Don't you think they were like, Reggie, what the fuck, man? Suge and Pac got shot down the street. Where the fuck's security?
they were messing with me because they like, where Reggie at, you know, because I wasn't there with him. But then Mr. Kalisis was standing near me. I guess he talked to some of the officers, that was working out front, and he kind of verified to me that something happened. And then by that time, I see about 4 or 5 other units that were working at the club. They started taking out heading that way.
Were you aware of their movements? Were you aware that they were headed over to the club at that point?
Not at that point. I hadn't heard anything. Frank hadn't communicated anything with me, and I just knew they would eventually will get there. But no, I didn't know any movement where they were at or when they were coming towards our way.
After you guys got back from Las Vegas back to the Southern California area, did Mr. Knight have a legal problem as a result of his alleged participation in that beating?
That's correct, sir.
And can you explain that to us?
They brought him in. Initially, they brought him in. They said for a 30 test for that he did with his probation officer. But
For dirty tests.
while he was still in custody, they then added the charge of he violated his probation for assaulting Mr. Anderson.
So he's on probation. He's on video, at least what appears to be participating in the beating of Mr. Anderson. And so he is charged with violating his probation.
That's correct, sir.
He's charged with a probation violation.
Do you participate in any of the preparation for Mr. Knight's hearing on his probation violation?
With his attorney, Mr. Kenner, I attended several meetings, yes.
And then are you aware of a meeting with Mr. Anderson?
That's correct.
Can you tell us about that?
We met with him. The attorneys had an agreement where I guess they were going to make a settlement or something for and Mr. Anderson to come and testify on Mr. Knight's behalf, where I believe the settlement was for about $60,000 because some of the death row people had assaulted him, and some
settlement for the assault.
for him coming up and testifying on the behalf of Mr. Knight.
Okay, so just to be clear.
They worked out a little something, something, is what they're saying. They worked out a little something, something.
Here, prior to Mr. Knight's revocation hearing, there was a meeting with Orlando Anderson, the person who was beaten in that video. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then there was an agreement that $60,000 would change hands between Suge Knight or Death Row or some aspect of that side to Mr. Anderson. Is that correct?
That's correct, but that was made between the attorneys, Mr. Kenner, who was also present, and Mr. Fall.
Okay. I'm not saying that you're the person that did that. I'm just saying you were that.
I was at the meeting, myself and Norris Anderson, who was the general manager of the company at the time.
Okay. And then at that probation hearing, is it fair to say that Mr. Anderson said that Mr. Knight was just trying to stop the fight and not participate in the fight at all?
That was his testimony, yes.
Okay. And that was after he received the $60,000?
That part I don't know.
That was after the agreement for the $60,000?
It was an agreement in place, though. So Mr. Knight was subsequently violated for his probation and received 9 years sentence.
Okay. And
right.
As a result, when Mr. Knight was imprisoned for those 9 years, who was running Death Row?
Him.
After about 4 or 5 minutes of his incarceration, I became the general manager of the company.
It's fair at this particular point. At some point, you had actually instructed Keith that, hey, he can actually make money doing the YouTube stuff. Remember that?
It didn't go quite like that, but I did pass his number to a few YouTube channels after he and I had this discussion about doing something on my channel, but I refused to pay him because I'm not giving some.
Wait. There's YouTube collab beef layered on top of all of this?
But I refused to pay him because I'm not giving someone I believe is Tupac Killer money.
Oh, shit!
You have Frank Alexander, you have Tupac, and no other bodyguards protecting Tupac that night.
Yeah, Mr. Kevin Heckey was supposed to attend, but he didn't. He wasn't there, and I didn't know that he hadn't shown up yet.
But you are aware at that particular point, Tupac was the most famous rapper almost in the entire world, if not the entire world, and you only assign one person and another person calls him sick?
They're interesting
He didn't call
questions.
him sick, he just didn't show up. But, yeah, I mean, wasn't unusual for Mr. Shakur to roll around with one guy and his outlaw guys.
But once again, you're telling us it's only Frank Alexander that's coming from your outfit, right?
That is correct.
And you also share with us that there's other people inside of 662 who are patting down the Mob James crew, but you can't send any more people over to be there for Tupac?
If I knew there was going to be an issue that eventually happened, of course I would have. I would have asked them to stay in the hotel.
So you're working, and your concern is making sure the club passes, and that the club passes for Suge Knight. Even though his attorney's present, all these cops are on the outside, and you have the security proficiency of Mob James on the inside, right?
And about 25 to 30 of my guys.
And so, but once again, yes, 20 to 30 of your guys.
Correct, yeah.
Retired police officers or off-duty police officers.
Correct.
And they're all there.
Correct.
And at some point, you get notice that Tupac had been shot, right?
I got notified. Correct.
Did Suge Knight ever appear at the club and continue partying that night?
I don't know, but I have heard James say that before. But
What about just from your Monday night sitting down with your people and going over what should have been done better? Was there any conversation or any way that you learned that Suge Knight actually showed up to party the night of the shooting?
the party was over. The party was over. They probably were still there at the club, but it wasn't like no partying going on, especially after people heard what happened. I can see that.
And at some point, you become
All right, I'm going to
the
stand
general
up.
manager of Death Row Records.
That's in 1997, sir.
So Suge Knight is in Las Vegas, and you were with them every single day. And in September of 1996, he just happened to get in this fray, and next thing you know, he's going to prison, right?
I'm sorry.
Ooh, was
Why-
he setting
let me
Suge
ask
up to take over
Why did Suge
Death
go to
Row?
prison?
I don't think he
He
was.
violated his probation.
Right. So you knew, of course, that he was on probation, right?
The
Before he came
whole,
out.
the whole time I was with him,
You did.
from 1994, yes.
Yeah. And so you knew that the number one person from Death Row Records, the primary principal for you, potentially could go to prison if he got into a fight, for instance, right?
Correct.
And on this particular night, you weren't around for him when he was in this quote-unquote fight, right?
I was around with Mr. Knight about 70 to 80% of his life. So I guess a lot of 20%.
You think this man's going to keep Suge from getting in a fight if Suge wants to get in a fight? Sure. Suge! Can you imagine? Suge, but Suge, think of your probation.
I wasn't with him.
Okay.
Public, and when I say that, I mean public. Because a lot of times he laid up, sleep with somebody, and I wasn't with him.
So in the most important time of Suge Knight's life, of having your protection, you weren't there for him, right?
Unfortunately not. That's correct.
And then you became the general manager of Death Row Records.
By his calling, not anyone else.
All right. No further questions.
Was there anything in writing regarding the transfer of management power to you over Death Row Records?
I wouldn't call it power. Just, dealing with the day-to-day operation. The one that signed people, artists for him. I did everything for him. I dealt with his
But
women.
did the lawyers?
I dealt with his parents.
Did you just say I dealt with his women?
I did everything for him. I dealt with his women. I dealt with his parents. I dealt with pretty much everything while he was incarcerated. And generally, because I was going back and forth, seeing him, the 4 days,
He held it down.
I spent hours on the phone with him.
Homie,
And
was it in writing? Did the lawyers write it down?
I was just his point of contact person.
So was there anything in writing regarding that?
Not to my knowledge, other than
I was not expecting today to go just off the way that it did. The last two witnesses of the day were incredibly interesting, had some moments like I have never seen in court before, and definitely laid a bit more foundation for what was going on in the 90s and what the fallout was after Tupac was shot. And both of them insinuated that Keffe D was responsible for the shooting of Tupac, one more directly than the other. Interesting, as we got into the testimony of Reggie Wright Jr., that defense talked about Reggie Wright's YouTube channel. And then there is YouTube collab beef with like Reggie wanting to have Keffe D come on his channel and have a conversation, but not wanting to pay him for it because he didn't want to pay him for it, and then giving his number out so Keffe D would go talk on other YouTube channels and like run his mouth. The last two witnesses both have podcasts / YouTube channels. I'm curious to see with Reggie Wright Jr. what happened with the chain that they were talking about, the Death Row Records chain, because there was some insinuation that maybe he was being misleading with regard to selling one of the chains and not selling another chain, and if he only had one or not. I don't know if it's going to matter. I think it was trying to undermine this witness, but I think the witness's financial interest could have been vetted or pulled out a bit more. But the jury also asked questions about, hey, so all of a sudden now you're in charge of Death Row Records. Is that in writing anywhere? And he was like, no, I was handling essentially day-to-day operations, and we would package everything up for the lawyer, and the lawyer would go up to prison on Tuesdays and have Suge Knight sign everything. So Suge was still intertwined or interlinked with the running of Death Row, and he was running day-to-day operations as the general manager, but none of that was in writing, which is surprising to me because they're dealing with the lawyer so frequently that nothing would be written up, or he would be hired, I guess, as the general manager, and maybe he was hired as the general manager and that was his name on the W-2 and there was nothing else. But the jury was like, was that in writing anywhere? Nobody asked how much he was making during that time, though, but they did ask how much Death Row was valued at during the time. The defense attorney suggested $500 million. And the witness said, I heard 300 million, something like that. Absolutely fascinating afternoon in trial. And it's just day two. And it looks like the prosecution is kind of going through their witnesses in a natural order. I'm curious to where we go next. We've now seen the medical examiner. We've seen a number of law enforcement. We've seen a few percipient witnesses who saw the shooting, saw the aftermath of the shooting, and then two witnesses who were quite connected to this. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.